Hey everyone, how's it going? Well, I'm working on this bookshelf. I just finished doing the drawboard mortise and tenon joints. There's a link to that video down in the description. Now I'm going to start working on the shelves, and I'm using some through tusked mortise and tenon joints for the shelves. It's a really cool looking joint, and it's also really strong. So let's get started building those. First, I'm going to start by laying out the locations of the mortises. I'm doing this all at the same time so everything's nice and even. And I take a piece of scrap wood that's the same thickness that my tenon will be to mark the other side. Then I take some marking knives and marking gauges and go right on my lines and establish a really nice sharp edge so that when I'm chiseling these out later on, it ends up with a really nice crisp edge and there's not any breakout or tear out or anything like that. Then I'm going to use a bit and brace to hog out all the extra waste material in the middle of that mortise. You can use a drill press or a drill with a bit in it, or you can just chop it out traditionally with just a chisel. Now I'm going to begin chiseling out the rest of the waste. I'm taking my time and I'm not taking too much at once. And I'm going to work up until I get just about a 1/16 of an inch left, and then I'll put my chisel in that knife wall to get that final nice clean edge. So to lay out these tenons, I took a scrap piece of wood, propped it underneath so that I'm real close and level with my mortise holes here. And then I took one of these squares here to help me get this shelf nice and centered so the distance between both sides is even, so I know it's centered. I'm just going to take a pencil here and mark the edges of my tenons. And now I know that's the width of my tenons. And what I'll do is I'll use this piece and transfer all the dimensions to this piece so that they're perfectly equal. So I'm laying out the length of my tenons, and I'm going with 2 inches so that when they extend through the mortise, there's plenty of material there that I can still do the wedge or tusk or peg, whatever you want to call it. And now I'm just extending the lines that I just made from those mortises. I'm going to go over a couple quick sawing tips here. When you're trying to start out and do a really nice, these cuts here for this tenon are important that they're 90 degrees and perfectly straight because they're going to be very visible. These are through tenons that are going to come through the side pieces. So when I start my saw out, and you can see in the reflection of the blade, this is what I look at. If my saw is not 90 degrees, I can see it in the reflection pretty easily. Also, if it's not perfectly vertical or perpendicular to the top, you can also see the angle change. So when I start my cut and I use my thumb to get my saw right next to where I want to cut, and I'm looking at the reflection to make sure everything is perfectly straight and up and down. Now it's time to see if the joints go together, and they go together really, really nice here. I wish all my joinery went together this nice. Now I'm just putting a ruler up there and kind of eyeballing how tall and how wide I want these wedges or tusks or pegs to be. And then I'm going to transfer kind of the shape onto this piece of cardboard, and then I'll cut it out and use that as a template on my piece of wood. Now over at the bandsaw, I'm going to cut out all the shapes. I'm using Jara for this, which is the same wood that the top is made out of, and it'll give it a really nice kind of contrasting color. So now I'm going to begin cleaning off all the nasty saw marks that the bandsaw left. Using a variety of different tools, these files and rasps and sandpaper and my hand plane, and get these all looking really nice and smooth. Now it's time to lay out the location of where these wedges will go. I first take a pencil and marking a line where that tenon comes out of the side piece. Then I'll take the wedges, each one is numbered individually and corresponds with a different location, and I mark on the side of that tenon the angle of that wedge. And that'll be a guide for me when I'm chiseling out that mortise later on. Now I'm moving the line that I made earlier where the tenon came out of the side piece, moving it 1/8 of an inch inside of the side so that when the wedge is in there, if it's flush, it won't actually be able to tighten that up. Here I'm taking a square and extending the line that I made earlier when I was tracing out the wedge on the side of that tenon to the top. I want these wedges to be centered in each one of these tenons, so I come in 1/2 inch from one side, then I lay my wedge on top of it to use that as a gauge of how wide I want that hole to be. Then I'll take this marking gauge here and I'll set each of these cutters to that width so that I can transfer these cuts to all the other tenons as well. Once you get close to finishing these mortises, you'll use that line that you made on the side so that the angle is perfect, so that when you put your wedge in later on, it has a flush, nice, snug fit. Be careful not to over tighten these. It doesn't take a lot for this joint to work. A couple taps and it'll be really, really solid. If you keep pounding that wedge, there's a chance you could break the whole thing. Well, there you have it, the Tusked through Mortise and Tenon joint. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope maybe you learned something from it and maybe it inspired you to try this joint yourself. My next video that I'll probably be posting is either going to be the finished bookshelf, where I do all this stuff kind of together, or I will also be doing a video of how I join the top to the sides here, and I'll be doing a couple through wedged mortise and tenon. So these side pieces will be coming through the top and be wedged, and it looks really, really cool. It's a really difficult joint because you want it to be really nice and crisp because it's so visible. So make sure, if you're interested, to subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate it. So thanks for stopping by and watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.